All right, that could go on for a while. Experience the long-lasting freshness of Clorox Scentiva, now available in Clorox Scentiva Lavender-Scented Bleach. Use as directed.
Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
If you are interested in supporting this podcast and at the same time getting all my episodes ad-free, then please head to my website, 3dprintingbasicspod.com. Again, that's 3dprintingbasicspod.com. There you can find all the links to support me, my affiliate links, and as a perk, you can get all my episodes ad-free if you subscribe on Patreon, Spotify, or Apple Music. Again, all my links will be there, as well as a contact form if you have any questions. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, and welcome back to 3D Printing Basics. This is episode number 47, and in this episode, we are going to be talking about build plates. So I received a nice message through my website, 3dprintingbasicspod.com, from Matt, who wanted to have an episode that talks about build plates, the different types of build plates, and so I thought that was a great idea, and here I am making an episode about it. If you have any questions that you would like to be answered, anything that relates to 3D printing, something that you think might make a good episode, or you just wanted a question answered, please feel free to reach out to me through my website. There's a link in the bio of every single episode down in the show notes, so just follow that, fill out the form, and I will get back to you, or I'll make an episode about it. And with that being said, let's get right into it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is why build plates are so important in the world of 3D printing, and specifically FDM printing. I know there's different build plates for SLA printing, not too sure about SLS printing, but I'm only going to be talking about FDM build plates today. So the reason why build plates in FDM 3D printing are so important is for a few reasons, but it mostly has to do with first layer adhesion. That first layer is the most important layer in all of 3D printing. If you have a bad first layer, you're going to have a bad 3D print. So it's imperative that you get a nice, flat, level bottom layer and that it doesn't peel or warp or come up at all during the entire length of the 3D print. This episode is brought to you by PCBWay. Ready to take your electronics projects to the next level? PCBWay offers everything you need, from custom PCBs to 3D printing and even CNC machining, all under one roof. They're trusted by engineers and makers worldwide for their exceptional quality and fast turnaround. And here's a special deal for listeners of 3D Printing Basics. Use the promo code 3DPrinting2, SQUARED, to get $10 off your first order. Start your next project with PCBWay and see the difference for yourself. Head over to PCBWay.com today. You need to have good first layer adhesion. You need to prevent the corner peel or warping. And also just for print quality and ease of use. If you have a bad build plate, it's just 3D printing isn't going to be as fun. You're going to spend a lot of time messing with it, trying to get it to work out. And you're going to spend a lot of time being frustrated because your prints aren't coming out at the quality that you know your printer can produce. And you spend all this money on a 3D printer and you want to make sure you have a good build plate with it, because without a good build plate, it doesn't matter how much money you spend on the 3D printer, your prints aren't going to turn out very good. So with that being said, let's just dive right into the different build plates. The first build plate, or actually before I got into talking about build plates, I wanted to talk about the additives that you can add to build plates, things like glue stick, hairspray, tape. I'm not going to talk about those too much just because I think we're at a point in 3D printing where we have advanced past the use of those things. I know that for some specialty filaments and some specialty printers, it still is reasonable and acceptable to use them. But in my experience, I've used glue stick in the past. I've used hairspray in the past. I've used branded 3D printing bed adhesive. I just think we're at a point now that we have advanced past needing to use that. I think that there are 3D print beds out there available for reasonable costs and are readily available, so we don't need to use these things anymore. And they're a pain to use anyway. It's kind of a hassle, so I'm not going to talk about them too much. I'm just going to talk about the actual build plates themselves. And with that being said, the first build plate that I want to talk about is the glass build plate. Glass is kind of, when I was just coming up in 3D printing, glass was pretty much the only thing that was used. Glass was one of the first build plates used. It provides good adhesion when it's cleaned properly. Glass definitely gets dusty, so you got to make sure that you clean it properly and pretty often. But it provides a beautiful bottom layer and really good adhesion when it's taken care of, and you can get it for a good price. But you cannot just take the window pane of your house and cut it and use that. You need tempered glass because the heat will mess with it, and if you crash into it with a metal nozzle, you might just crack the glass. So that's important. You can't just use any glass. You got to use specific kind of glass. But like I said, it's cheap. It provides good adhesion. Some cons to it is that some materials like PETG and TPU can weld themselves to the glass. I've seen that happen before on YouTube videos, specifically the one I remember is 3D Printing Nerd. He got a giant 3D printer and he was using some PETG and it welded itself to the glass and completely shattered that build plate. So you got to be careful if you're using some materials other than PLA on a glass bed. You do need bed clips, to secure the glass plate to the bed. And you also need a spatula to remove prints. You can't just pick up the bed and flex it and the print comes off. You need something to kind of get under there and pry it off the bed, which can mark up or damage your print if you do it too aggressively. But overall, I would say glass is a good build surface. If it's the build surface that comes default on your printer, it's certainly not a bad build surface. There are pros and cons to it, but like I said, overall, I think it's pretty good. And moving on, I wanted to talk about a little bit of a lesser known build plate. This is something that doesn't come default on any kind of printer. This is something that you're going to have to buy aftermarket, and it's G10 or Garolite. I saw a video 3 or 4 years ago by Maker's Muse, who's a popular 3D printing YouTuber, about this material, and I was blown away when he demonstrated it. Basically, the way it works is when it heats up, it gets incredibly adhesive and gives you really good first layer adhesion. All the prints will stick. There was no warping when he was using it, and when it cooled down, it popped right off the bed with no problems. And so I picked up some G10 or Garolite, whatever you want to call it, and it's incredibly cheap. It was about $10 for a sheet of it to fit my build plate, and I had nothing but problems with it. It never worked once. I'd never got a successful print out of it. I tried sanding it. I tried doing everything, and I just couldn't get it to work. So with that being said, I think Maker's Muse is a much better 3D printer than I am. So if you're going to take somebody's word, I would suggest taking his. There was probably something that I was doing wrong, but I just wanted to let you know that there have definitely been multiple experiences on two different ends between me and him. I trust Maker's Muse. I don't think he would lie about this material. I think it's a great material, and I think it was more just me being a little bit inexperienced and not really knowing what I was doing. But with that being said, G10 is similar to carbon fiber, but much, much cheaper. Like I said, you can find it for $10 to $20 a sheet. So this is definitely the cheapest alternative build plate that you're going to find on the market if you're looking to buy one that doesn't come default with your printer. And like I said, Maker's Muse swears by it, and he's definitely a very trustworthy person. I'll try and find the video and link down to it in the show notes if I can. It's also very durable. It is probably the toughest build plate that you will find on the market. So if your nozzle crashes into it, if stuff welds to it and you have to pry it off, it's still going to hold up over time, and it's going to be a really good build plate over time. So that's definitely something to think about. You can print super tough and abrasive materials like carbon fiber, PEEK, any kind of engineering grade filaments you can print on this material. The only kind of downsides that I don't like is you need bed clips. It's not magnetic at all, so you do need bed clips, which is kind of a pet peeve of mine, in order to attach it to your bed. And it's also not super popular. Like I said, the only kind of influencer or popular person in the 3D printing space that I've seen use Garolite is Maker's Muse, so it's somewhat unproven, but like I said, I think he's a very trustworthy person, so I think we can take his word for it. The next build plate that I wanted to talk about is kind of the gold standard in 3D printing nowadays, and that is the PEI sheet. PEI sheets is what comes default on most printers nowadays, whether it's the smooth PEI sheet on Prusa printers or it's a textured PEI sheet on Bamboo printers. It just seems to encompass everything that involves a good build plate in 3D printing. It's very popular. There's no surface prep needed. You can use it heated. You can use it unheated. It comes in both smooth and textured variants, which can give you different bottom layer finishes depending on what you're looking for. It's magnetic and it's removable. So when your print is done, you can just peel off the build plate, flex it a little bit. The print will pop right off and then you put it back. There's no clips or nothing needed. It just overall is the perfect build plate when it comes to 3D printing. I have solely been using textured PEI sheets for 95 to 99% of my prints over the past few years, and I have never had a problem with them. Sometimes, I will admit, the first layer adhesion, sometimes it gets lost, but I think that's more because of use. I have been using them every day for a long time, so they're probably getting a little bit worn out, and I either need to refresh them or buy new ones. But they are still incredibly reliable. They are very, very good. I rarely have first layer adhesion problems. The first layer always looks amazing, especially with the textured build plates. I really like the textured build plates bottom look. You can get specialty looks if you really want to. You can go out there. They have like some crazy rainbow one like Kaleidoscope. You can get smooth, you can get textured, all that good stuff. I could talk about PEI sheets forever. They're just the best 3D print plates. If anything, just the magnetic part where you can remove them and it's just so easy to get it off. You don't have to go hacking at it with a spatula or anything like that. You just pop the build plate off, and especially if it's cooled down all the way, 90% of the time when it's cooled down all the way and I go to pull it off, the print comes right off when I'm just pulling it off. I don't have to do anything else, which is just so nice. They're also cheap. You can definitely find some of the more expensive ones, like the one that I'm thinking of right now. I believe it's Wham Bam's. It runs up to like $60-ish, but you can find some really good secondhand ones on Amazon for about $30 to $40, and those aren't going to be as good as the name brand ones, but not as good just means every once in a while you're going to have a print here or there fail. I have both the name brand ones and the cheap sort of knockoff ones, and both of them work really, really well. Definitely there is a noticeable difference. The name brand one works better than the non-name brand one. Just the finish coming off of the bottom is a little bit better, and it's a little bit more reliable in terms of first layer adhesion, but both are still very reliable build plates. And overall, PEI sheets, they're what I'm going to use. I'm not going to mess around with glass or G10 or anything like that. I'm going to go with what I know works and what provides the ease of use that I am looking for in 3D printing. So my recommendation is to find some PEI sheets, whether you want to spend the money on a name brand like Wham Bam or FlexPlate, or you want to go on Amazon and find some cheap knockoff ones. They're going to be oftentimes just as good. They're just the best. There's not much else I can say about it. So with that being said, that's just about everything that I have to say. I hope you learned something about these build plates. Again, shout out to Matt for asking the question through the website. If you have any questions that you would like to ask me, please reach out through the website. That's 3dprintingbasicspod.com. You can go there, fill out the contact form. I will get a direct email from it, and I will either email you back with an answer to your question, or I will make a whole episode about that. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.